Hi, it's Dorothy Guiding with Scrapbooking Quebec. In this video, I'm going to create a double page layout featuring products from Stampin' Up's Autumn to Remember collection. It's video 2 in what I hope will be a monthly YouTube series called Stampin' Up Scrapbooking. Stampin' Up is now offering scrapbooking supplies in addition to card making products, and I'm really excited about this. In today's video, I'll be playing with the Autumn to Remember workshop kit. So this collection includes 18 12 by 12 papers. Some are prints, others are solids. There are stickers, ephemera, pre-cut cut files, and other embellishments. In addition to all of this, there are cutting guides and instructions for creating 3 double page spreads. So I'm going to be using these guides as a jumping off point only. Everything I use, material and tools, will be listed in the description box below, along with my link to Stampin' Up. So let's get started. And you're going to see in advance, I prepared a frame style foundation page with 6 sheets of paper. I gutted 4 of them. There is a tutorial on my channel where I explain how to do that. So that's going to be listed and linked below. So that is the instruction guide that comes with the workshop kit. I'm going to be making the 2 pages you see at the top. I'm just giving you an idea of what it looks like inside. From that workshop collection, I selected 3 pattern papers. There are more pattern papers, but that's what I'm going to be using for this layout. I also have some wood grain paper. That comes from a different Stampin' Up collection. It's called Country Woods. It is a current product. I absolutely love it. I'm showing you some of the other papers from that collection. So that is a bunch of paper I gutted from behind the foundation page. So I have some scraps in there. You can see that I have matted in white cardstock 5 photos. And I also want to point out that the white and green cardstock in the foundation page was also part of that workshop kit. So I showed you stickers, I showed you some laser cut embellishments. Now I'm showing you some cut files along with some ephemera pieces. Again, all part of that workshop kit. In this tray, I have some other bits and pieces, but most of it is tools, and I'll talk about that later on when I embellish my page. So having a look at the sketch again, and in the guide, it calls to cut 6 strips of paper that measure 3.5 by 10 inches long, and there are banner edges at the end of each one. I'm doing it a bit differently. I cut myself out 6, but 3 of them are 3.5 inches wide, like in the instructions. The other 3 are 4 inches wide, and instead of creating banners, I'm tearing the ends. Now, I think I'm doing it at 10 inches here, but in a moment, I quickly realize I'm doing it a little bit too long. So I'm going to place them on the page, and differently than the sketch. Now, in the sketch, they create almost like 2 individual frame style foundation pages. I have 1. And what I'm going to do, which is different than the sketch, is have these going straight across the 2 pages with no division in the middle. In the sketch, there's a division in the middle. It's almost like they're 2 companion pages. So right now I'm just playing with the order, and at this point I'm realizing they are too long for my liking, but nevertheless I'm looking for an order that pleases my eye. And you can see this wood grain paper. It was the paper I gutted from behind the foundation page, and I'm going to use that as opposed to the workshop paper for my mat that goes across the middle. Now, off camera, I trimmed all of those strips of paper, so they all measure about 10 inches long now, like they're supposed to. And I also added ink to the edges, and the ink I used is an old retired one from Stampin' Up. It's called Brown Sugar. I was just looking for a brown neutral. So now I'm liking how this is looking, and you can see that the wood grain paper on the right is longer. I actually had to piece together 2 pieces to make it that long. I didn't want to cut into a new piece of wood grain paper, a 12 by 12. I wanted to work with what I gutted from behind the foundation page, and wood grain paper works really well. You can piece it together quite easily without noticing it because the grain's in the wood. Anyway, now what you see me doing is adhering my strips of paper to the frame style foundation page. For that one in the middle, that's where I'm starting. I'm having that equal going across the two pages, and the other ones kind of bump up and down, and from the middle I overlapped and I overlapped. Looking at those strips of paper, you can see I have one 4-inch one, a 3.5, a 4-inch one, 3.5, 4-inch, 3.5. So that's how I did it, and I'm just giving you a visual of how it looks before I put that mat across the middle. Now, that's what I'm going to do. It's not actually going to go in the middle. I'm going to put it a little bit towards the top. So when I adhere it on the foundation page, it ends up being more or less 2 inches from the top of that foundation page. So once this is down, then you're going to see I do place my photos on top of it, and I quickly get into the embellishing part of this layout. So I'm just going to finish adhering here. You can see I'm bumping one page up against the other, using as a guide to adhere the second half of that wood grain mat. Now, once again, looking at my sketch there, I have that cut file circle, which is part of the workshop kit. I'll be using that. I'm showing you that I double matted my photos in that green paper, which was in the foundation page. And from behind those mats, I die cut myself some leaves. Now this is a retired stamp and die set called Love Up Leaves from Stampin' Up. That's what I ended up using for that. There are leaves in the workshop kit, but there wasn't enough. That's why I ended up die cutting my own leaves. I'm showing you some other ephemera pieces that were part of the workshop kit that I've selected. I'm also showing you the back side of these. Each one of them are identified as Project 1, Project 2. I'm ignoring all of that because I'm kind of going my own way. What I'm showing you right there are basically laser cut embellishments. They look like wood grain, super, super cool. So I pulled some of those off the sheet and I selected those. I may need more. I did my journaling on vellum. I printed it up from the computer, so that's ready. And I also have my title. Now for my title, I use these alphas from Vicki Boutin. They're just called Chipboard alphas, and what I did was I colored them in with my Stampin' Up Stampin' Blends, and I used the color Old Olive, which is the same green that's already in this workshop kit. So my title is going to be The Rescue Plant 2024. So the first thing I know is that I want to use that cut file, that circle. It is on the sketch that is in the workshop instruction guide, and I really like that. Now, I have a different number and different size photo, so I'm making this work for me. You can see I have them bouncing up and down across that wood grain mat in the middle. Now, on the sketch, that circle is 100% on the left-hand side of the layout because, again, they have it like two separate layouts. I kind of like how it overlaps, so that's what I think I'm going to try to do. So the first thing I have to do is adhere my two photos on the left-hand side of the page. These ones I'm basically putting them pretty much in the middle. You're going to see when I do it on the right hand side, I kind of bounce them up and down. After I do this, what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of adhesive, actually quite a bit of adhesive, on those little narrow strips on this cut file. I don't make you watch all of it. I continue it, and I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to do this. You can see with mint tape, I have my two pages adhered together, and I'm going to adhere it down, have it kind of overlap onto the right page, and then I'm going to come in with my scissors and cut it because the circles on the right page, I'm going to be covering up my photo with it. They're going to be going underneath my photos. So I'm coming in with the scissors, and I really should have done this off camera because the page is kind of far away from me, and I didn't like how I did it, and I kind of messed it up. And now I'm showing you I really messed it up. I tried to fix it by trimming it with a trimmer. I kind of ruined it. Anyway, you can see the circle on the right page. I basically had to Frankenstein it a little bit so that it met up with the circle on the left page. But I did that, and then I can cover it up with my photo. I just wanted to show you that I really wished I had kind of left the imperfection there after I scissor cut, but then I tried to fix it, and then I kind of ended up ruining it. And that happens sometimes when you scrapbook. Anyway, moving on, you can see I adhered my 3 photos on the right-hand page, once again, bouncing them up and down and overlapping them. Now, before I start creating my embellishment clusters, I'm getting out this little mini die cut and embossing machine. It is a Stampin' Up product, and I want to make myself some tomatoes. Now, this is a story about a tomato plant, so it's easy to make tomatoes, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do. You can see I have some nesting circle dies. These are really old ones from Stampin' Up, and I'm just going to cut myself out a few different circles in this Cajun Craze cardstock. Again, it is a Stampin' Up color, and it's also the same color that is in that workshop collection. So I cut myself out some circles. I end up cutting out some more as well. And then I have a Wonky Star Punch. So mine is really, really old from Creative Memories. I'm just going to use a scrap of this green paper that was in this workshop. Cut myself out some of these wonky stars, and you can see I kind of adhered them so that they were off center. And you can also see I'm using that same brown sugar ink just to ink up the edges of them. I'm adding a little bit of liquid glue, and that's how I'm adhering those stars. And then I have these really cute rudimentary tomatoes, and that's going to just make it more theme specific, my embellishment clusters. So I'm going to clean all of this up, and now I'm going to start embellishing. Now first I want to add my journaling. So I have it on vellum. I'm just going to tear it, and I'm going to overlap that photo that you see kind of on the left-hand side of the right page. That is just some tomatoes, and sometimes I do like to add my journaling on top of a photo like that that's not necessarily super important. I can see those tomatoes underneath, but I don't need to see any more than that, and it just adds a nice different touch for the journaling. So now I'm establishing 3 areas for my embellishment clusters with the leaves because those are big, and I'm also kind of repeating the same color and shape. So I add that in 3 spots, and now I'm doing the same thing with those tomatoes that I created. So again, I have repetition. They are not identical, but it creates a visual triangle across the 2 pages. So I'm happy with that. Now I'm looking at the smaller stuff. I'm going into those little wood grain laser cut pieces, which are super adorable. I have some little leaves. I'm just tucking those in for some added detail there. So I don't have to have identical items in each one of them, but I do want a bit of that wood grain look in each one of them. You can see at the bottom, I have one that looks like a garden stake. Super, super cute. Now at this point, I haven't addressed my placement of the title, and I honestly not sure what to do. You can see me playing around the circle there. I'm also thinking maybe I'll put it in the top left-hand corner. That would be easier. I'm thinking about that, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I really want to try it around that circle. I decide to ignore it, and now what I'm going to do is adhere my stuff. I'm also having a look at the sticker sheet and the sketch, because on the sketch, they used a title from the sticker sheet, which is Autumn, which is super cute, but I really, really needed the word rescue in the title on my page. This is very specific about an old beat up tomato plant that ended up in our yard, and we affectionately referred to it as the rescue all summer long. So that's why I didn't want to go with something generic. I really wanted to go with the word rescue. Anyway, as you can see, I've moved ahead and I've started to adhere these pieces. So I'm starting in the top right-hand corner, basically more or less following what I did. I do change a bit. If you look at the placement of the tomatoes, originally I had 3 up in that corner. Instead, I brought 1 down along the side. Now you see me working at that bottom left-hand corner on the right page, the same thing. For some of these pieces, I'm popping them up on foam adhesive as well. Basically, in each cluster, I end up popping up 1 tomato. I do leave that garden stake because I'm going to want to do some stamping or something with that a little bit later on. Now I'm working in the top left, very same thing, some leaves, a few tomatoes, along with one little wood grain piece there. So I'm actually quite happy with that, and this layout is really starting to fill up. But I still haven't decided what I'm going to do with my title, and I have to do something with that garden stake. So I'm showing you a stamp set. I do plan on stamping on that garden stake, but first I have to make a decision for my title, a pretty important part of this layout. The easy way would be to put it in the top left corner, but again, it's kind of bothering me. I'm thinking it might look kind of neat around this circle. I'm not too worried about placing them because this is chipboard. The adhesive behind it isn't very good, and I'm just lightly placing it around this circle. I'm kind of liking it, so you can see me just playing with the placement, I guess you could say. And I decide, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it. So I'm getting out my Nouveau liquid adhesive and I'm going to start adhering. Again, chipboard alphas, they don't stick very well, so adding additional adhesive is a good idea. I did have to remove one of the tomatoes because it was on foam adhesive, and what I will do is I will put it back on the page after I get my title down. So you can see off camera I continued adhering my title, so I have it all around the circle plus 2024 on the right page. And now what I want to do is stamp on top of this garden stake. So I'm using this stamp set. It's really old from Stampin' Up, called From the Garden, and I pulled myself out a few little wordy bits from it that will fit on top of the garden stake. So what I have is "You're Great" on the top one because I needed something small enough to fit on there. And the bottom one, it's "Grown with Love." So I'm actually happy. I wasn't quite sure how this was going to stamp. It looks like wood grain. It looks textured, but it was flat. So I could stamp on it and it stamped nicely. So I have that. I'm going to tuck it in that cluster at the bottom there. And I will add a few finishing touches, but there is a lot going on this page already. There's a lot of color, there's a lot of pattern. So I'm looking at the sticker sheet and I'm looking at the wordy bits, and I find one that says "Story of the Day." So I thought that would be good in and around my journaling somewhere. I'm just looking for some foam adhesive right now, and I get out my Stampin' Dimensionals. I'm a little off screen, sorry about that, and I'm just adding some foam adhesive behind there, and I'm just going to put it along, just above, I should say, that photo on the left hand side of the right page, just above my journaling. So I am happy with that. Now I am going to look at the other embellishments. Now I have a few things here. In the guide for this layout that I'm creating, they had these chevrons, which were cute. They had them going around the circle. I kind of played with them a bit, but I didn't like the yellow or the orange on there. And there was a tag there as well. That's what you see me playing with right now. It's kind of like a half tag to put behind a photo. So what I thought I would do is stamp in the top of that as well. So up on that one, I have "From the Garden." Again, I was just looking for something that would actually fit in the white part of that tag. And now you see me tucking it just within the layers of the photo. So finally, what I'm going to do is come in with these little enamel dots. These are actually from Pinkfresh Studio. I put a few on that wordy bit above the journaling, and one is just in that tag hole. But that's basically it. I'm going to leave it as is. All you see me doing is fluffing up the edges of that torn paper at the bottom, but that is it. I actually loved playing with this workshop kit. I will be trying out the other sketches as well, and I will share them for you in my next layout share. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, Scrapbooking Quebec, I would be thrilled if you did. And if you are a subscriber, thank you very, very much. I'm taking a few weeks off YouTube, and I'll be back on November 9th, resuming my usual schedule. Have a great day, and I will see you soon on YouTube. Bye-bye.